Hi, everyone. Hi, nice to see everyone joining. I can see the numbers rising slowly as everyone's joining our webinar. You could also tell us where you're joining from today, seeing as we have quite an international set of speakers. I'm Lauren, Marketing Communication Manager at Mitte, and I will be moderating the talk for you all today from Berlin. We also have Carmen and Natalia in the background of the talk, who are going to help us moderate digitally. Welcome to Mitte's first panel discussion of 2021, entitled At Home, the Future of Smart Home Products, where we'll speak essentially about what smart home tech means today for consumers. So we have 4 great speakers today sharing their perspective, also coming from 4 different at-home missions, and I'll be introducing them in a moment and talking more about that. But for now, I just want to give a brief overview of the format. So we'll be having a discussion for around 30 minutes, followed by then opening it up to a live Q&A in the second half of the talk for around 15 to 20 minutes. So if you have a question for a particular speaker or all the speakers or any of the speakers, please do use the sort of special Q&A section in Zoom. You can also upvote any questions you see and like and want them to have a greater chance of getting answered. So also please feel free to do so throughout the talk, like you don't have to do it at the end. And you can also comment throughout. So I hope you find this talk valuable, and let's begin. I think it goes without saying that our own 4 walls have never been more at the top of our minds than in the past few months to a year. Over the next hour, we want to take an in-depth look at those very products that join us at home, how their technology might be optimizing our time at home, and why this even might speak to what a lot of us are probably needing: a sense of autonomy, self-sufficiency, and conscious consumption. So we have 4 founders today to talk about this, who I'll each ask to say hi in a moment and just to give a quick 1 sentence on why they've joined their mission. But before that, I'd actually like to introduce them personally. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Valerie Song, who's the CEO and co-founder of AVA Technologies, Inc., based in Vancouver. Good morning. AVA focuses on creating smart indoor gardens for the home that help anyone to get growing. Their mission is to shift society's preference away from cheap mass agriculture to more local, nutritious, and sustainable options without having to rely on anyone. Welcome, Val. Great to have you. Good morning. Our second speaker is Sahand Dilmaghani, founder and CEO of Terra Kaffe, a startup based in Brooklyn on a mission to transform and elevate the home experience, starting with the in-home coffee experience with a super automatic podless espresso machine. Nice to have you, Sahand. Welcome. We also have Patrick Nennewitz, co-founder of Stuttgart-based company KALEA, whose vision is to turn today's waste into tomorrow's happiness, manifesting first with a smart home composting system that turns your organic waste into nourishing compost in just 48 hours. Welcome, Patrick. And finally, we have Mitte's very own Moritz Waldstein, who is the CEO and co-founder of Mitte. For those of you who might not be familiar with Mitte, we are a startup based in Berlin on a mission to disrupt the bottled water industry by providing healthy hydration for everybody and transforming the way we drink water at home. Our very first product, ironically, is called Mitte Home and is designed to reach every user touch point at home. I'm personally really looking forward to the upcoming discussion and hearing each speaker's perspective. I hope you are too. If we could just go around and each panelist say hi and just give a brief 1-liner on why they joined their mission or why that mission was important to them. Let's start with Val.
Hey everyone, great to be here. Why I joined my mission was when I was cooking with my niece and nephew, and they asked me where tomatoes came from. I asked them where tomatoes came from, and they said from the grocery store. And I thought, that really has to change. People have to really know how to reconnect back their food.
Thanks, Val. Maybe we can go to Sahand as well to say hi.
Hey. I really like the semantics around how you said that versus joining versus starting. I think that's actually very accurate, very apt way of putting it. For us, I think it was The reason I say that is because I think it was very much the case that people were already looking for alternatives on how to improve or consume more aspirationally when it came to their daily coffee rituals and routines. And there really wasn't anything there meeting the changing customer demand. So, it's very much leaning into the concept of the morning is the childhood of the day. So, if you start it right, you can carry yourself forward and that much better throughout the rest of your day.
Thank you, Sahand. Patrick, maybe we can go to you.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here. For me personally, actually, it's two reasons. The first one is, we live in a very linear economy, so we have products made to use, and then when they're done with using, they're most of the time scrapped. We wanted to change that, as we said, the vision is to make today's waste in tomorrow's happiness. So to create something valuable out of the stuff we use on a daily basis. And the second very practical reason actually is, I live in the 5th floor, and here in Germany we have a very tedious system to sort on waste, which is great. But I have to go down 5 floors every day and up to bring out my organic waste. So technology also should help us on that. But so it's two reasons: the circular way of living and also a more convenient way of living.
Thank you, Patrick. And Moritz, maybe we can end with you.
Yeah, thanks. It's so exciting. 135 people as well, so really cool. So I think why I joined basically this vision, or basically why we're doing what we're doing, is because I thought it's actually quite an interesting, strange idea to combine plastic and water at source and then ship it throughout the world, and that happens 5 million times a minute. So that's how many bottles are sold. And I thought that'd be really interesting on one hand to change that, such a massive market that somehow has become entrenched, and to really provide a different solution. And I think that's on one hand just exciting from an innovation perspective, and it's also just something exciting because you create something that hopefully makes the planet a little bit better, and that's why I'm excited about doing what I'm doing.
Thank you. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. So let's get down to it. I'd actually like to start off with sort of the journey or trajectory of smart home products. So maybe a few years ago, smart home tech might have been understood as automated security systems, or sophisticated lighting systems, or you can control your heating with your phone. But now it seems we might be asking more of our products. Products like AVA, for example, are coming to the market. Val, how have at-home smart products changed in the past 5 years, do you think? And also, what do you think will change in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how much a product or the industry can change in just a little amount of time, especially when COVID hit. I think one statistic that really shocked me was before the pandemic, almost 80% of people didn't actually buy groceries online before, but then last year, 79% of shoppers did. So it's a whopping change. I think there were certain things in the last few years that have drastically changed the way we shop, the way we eat, the way we live at home, and our demands have risen more as we are spending more time indoors, and we want to upgrade to better quality of life right at home. So there is a lot of demand from consumers for better products, a lot of demand for better customization, convenience, and convergence of products, especially in the smart home space. We're seeing integration of different technologies into the smart voice speakers as well. So especially when you're in North America, you have Google Home and Amazon Alexa dominating the market, and we're seeing a lot of voice integration coming out just in the last 2-3 years. And I think one commonality is that people are willing to spend money to buy time. And that's really what I've seen is if you can save them a few minutes from the day to give them back some joy into their lives, a little bit of extra time to think about other things because they're so busy and there's no separation from home to work life. I think that's become really important, especially over the last year.
Yeah, and I suppose leading on from that, with this kind of consciousness to have more time, Patrick, with KALEA, it's very much rooted in circularity. So, obviously taking a waste stream and turning that into something useful that you actually need, which really speaks to this more kind of conscious consumption. And these topics seem to be on the rise. How do you think they're impacting future home products in general, or maybe there are other topics that you also impacting?
Sure. So when I think of how products at the beginning, it was just adding more and more features and having more products could just do more, from a linear product to multifunctional things. And now actually when and that's what I like, smartness also becomes enrooted with consciousness or the nature. I mean, basically what we do with our product is just combining technology and nature really together and use what we invented for the last hundreds of years for a good cause actually, and make it good, make it useful, and also this circularity process. And we want to give, or I think smart products give people or consumers a bit of control back of what they want to do in the future, and make it active choices. And I think that we will see more. So I mean, we basically more or less have the whole life cycle, right? From water to planting, and we can do coffee, or we can grow coffee, and basically with the coffee we drink, we put it into our product, and then we have the whole life cycle of basically everything combined with products, and brought it in back to the hands of the consumers, so everyone can decide on its own and don't have to trust of what is out there. Or actually, even when you buy products, it's rather difficult to make a conscious decision, because it's very complex to decide, if you have a product in the shelf in the supermarket, what is really in there, where is it coming from. It's very complex to make good decisions. So I think smart products help consumers to really make a good decision on their own.
Yeah, actually that leads on to what I wanted to ask Sahand, actually, because both Val and Patrick, you're both saying how taking all of these complex things and making it feel quite simple for the consumer. So Sahand, I know that you've also mentioned in the past that kind of conscious consumption or sustainability ironically requires looking to the simplicity of the past in order to move that category forward. Maybe you could expand on that a little, and also tell us whether you think this will be the case in the next 10 years for smart home products.
So I just want to make sure, I'm getting a bit of an echo there. I want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. You wanted to go a little bit deeper into how we're looking kind of historically in terms of taking a slightly reductionist approach, right? Like how we're simplifying things. Yeah, I think for us, it's rather interesting, because we're always having this contradiction internally about how we want to simplify things, how we want to make things easier to use. To Val's point about also, saving time for customers, I think it's super important. You have to make sure that the trade-off is actually that time is being used in the right way, or that we're saving time for people, or providing them, in this sense, products that enable them to actually have more meaningful experiences. So it's kind of taking this very human-centered design thinking approach about how do we actually respect the users as we introduce more tech, right? And so one thing I would say, at least how we started with our flagship product, was obviously that we wanted to have with the TK1 a device that actually disintermediated a lot of the elements that we were bringing in over the last 2 decades, be it single-use plastics or virgin aluminum that were brought into the process, ironically, for the purpose of efficiency. So the old adage in the US used to be that the biggest consumer of coffee in the US was the kitchen sink. So you would end up dumping out a lot of what you would brew, but kind of leveraging technology in a way that allows us to, of course, still allow for a lot of efficiencies in terms of per drink, per user, experience, but at the same time also just eliminating needless materials that are coming into the process that then have to get put into a landfill with. And then we see statistics like every minute, 39,000 plastic pods around the world go into a landfill. It's certainly something that we're very sensitive to. And we know that, it's certainly something shared with the Mitte team in terms of let's say a broader strokes mission of the company. But as I said, it's always about balancing as we go forward, as we introduce more tech. How do we do it in a way that is very, respectful to the overall human experience and that daily ritual that we're actually trying to protect, that's so precious?
Mm-hmm. And obviously, I mean, you're all 4 founders from 4 different missions, even though there are different touch points that connect, and obviously different products. So Moritz, what does smart home tech mean for you? As mentioned, it might, for some people, mean Alexa. For others, it might literally mean any product that's sort of connected to Wi-Fi. What does it mean for you? And specifically, what does water have to do with it if it's all about, simplifying things down?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Well, maybe 2 points, and I think I want to maybe separate the smartness and the home for a second, because I think smartness, as you mentioned, and I think a couple of you guys also before, meant, adding and appliances usually meant there would be an IoT integration and just something. You can connect Bluetooth, some kind of feature with it, and I think we're getting. I think that's a really positive movement. I think we're getting away from that. We're really looking, and Sahand, you mentioned it as well, into asking the question of, does it make sense and does it add value to people? Does it make their life better? Is it delightful to use? And I think smartness does not necessarily have to be digital. It most likely will be, or many elements will be digital, but I think it also has a lot to do with user interaction. Like, is this a nice surface to touch? Does it blend? Does the digital blend well with the non-digital, with the haptics and so forth? So I think it's also quite a lot to do with smart business processes and smartness in the sense of integrating better into people's lives. So I think that's one, and I think there's also quite a strong overlap with sustainability, because you just design better products. So I think that's one element. And then the home, I think I find interesting as well, because we're now obviously at the peak of being at home, but I think there's a general tendency, if you look kind of historically, that's kind of, I studied history a long time ago, but basically if you look historically at, you had the very clear separation of work and home, and then I think you have a continuation of those boundaries being blurred. And we are now basically in a time when a lot of, there's a catalyst, which is called Corona, which increased a lot of trends that have basically happened before. We see, people buying online much more now. We see people working from home now. And I think many of those things won't change. So the home will become more important. And I think, smart products, but not just stupidly smart products, digital products, will play a more prominent role in our lives moving forward. So I think, and now you asked the question of why water, like why does, I guess, like why the hell would a water maker be smart, right? And I think that's a fair question, and something that we looked at very closely. So we don't have smart water in that sense. We have we looked at what does make our users' lives better, and there are smart features that we have, such as circularity of our consumables. So we have consumables that get used in our carrier, and then basically get automatically replaced in a circular way, and that is easily done by smartness. So that's one of the key features that we have. We also help people to hydrate and so forth. But I think really the key feature is to kind of have a smart replenishment, both for the user side, but then also for the planet, in just making it a smarter system, not just for the user, but also for the resources that we use.
Yeah.
Moritz, I feel like you might appreciate this. Connected to your first point, we have a rule internally of no Black Mirror. So no Black Mirror episodes, like it's a rule. If we think like what something we're designing could could
end up in the Black Mirror.
We have this expression of like, maybe you're not there, but if it's skating to where the puck is going, not where the puck is. For all you hockey fans listening, I guess, I don't know. But it's really about skating to where the puck is going. So it's like, okay, it's cool. If we have potential for data capture here, if we're looking at this certain partner, if we're looking at a certain stakeholder view of our relationships, it's like, okay, this is great. This is super exciting. Is it going to get there really quickly before we know it? We're like, yeah, this is Black Mirror. Like, I think it's a very maybe facetious way of thinking of this, but it's certainly something that I think always helps us as like, maybe not the only North Star, but which is contradictory to the concept of a North Star to say there's more than one, but this is definitely something that we're always thinking about.
Yeah.
Yes, Sahand, I saw you smiling throughout the whole time that Moritz was talking. I really wanted to ask you about that, but also, I mean, okay, so for you, smart technology, home tech products is like not about having a black mirror, but just picking up on what Moritz said, which was about the user needs and this sort of optimizing it. I know that with Terra Kaffe, it's not just about sort of the ritual, the daily ritual, but really elevating that and optimizing that experience of that daily ritual. Maybe you could also talk a little bit more about how smart technology enables us to really have like more optimized experience at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on kind of phase one or the genesis of smart homes, where it was like, you know, the thermostats, the security system, smart locks. Now we're seeing kind of the growth of fitness, and now we're kind of moving into this direction of integrations of all of these things, or at least, let's say it's still very much in its infancy, but that this, if we're skating to where the puck is going, we can see exactly how this is going to start evolving, that these things will start speaking to each other. And I think as we look at the evolution of the smart home, for us, it's super important to be considered, to be thoughtful for who we're actually developing this product, and making sure that if we are excited about kind of creating an evolution in the home, to not overuse the same word all the time, but certainly it needs to elevate the experience. And even it's funny because we kind of end up in these back and forths internally, where I actually personally love a lot of analog features in products. I think like it's such a, I mean, this isn't contradictory, but it's certainly something that always becomes a little bit contentious in some camps. You have people are like, yeah, what, this is like completely in the opposite direction of what we're pacing. But I think at least having those conversations and realizing that kind of the digital to be met with tactile is actually a really special thing. And especially if we're saying like how you start your morning, like you need to feel good about the next thing you interact with. So our product might become the next thing that you interact with outside of your bed. And I wanted it to have the same warmth, the same invitation that your bed might have had with the next thing that you interact with. So for me, it was certainly interesting when we saw, you know, the first thing I did when I started the company was I just served a lot of people coffee with our prototype and was trying to get as much information as possible. And when I saw the amount of vitriol, when I saw the visceral negative reaction of people to their home, I'm going to say a brand here, but I'm sure it's not going to be terribly shocking to anybody, like their Nespresso machine, like the amount of like vitriol towards this product was incredible. And I was always fascinated by the fact that they were still buying it. They even sometimes they would tell me like, I just got a new one. However, we're dealing with a situation in which the person themselves is admitting very explicitly that they don't actually like the end result, the consumable, the process, all of that seem to be jeopardized. So for us to like look at every single touch point and saying, okay, there's opportunity throughout from end to end, it's really exciting, it's encouraging, but then we always have to kind of check ourselves a little bit, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And actually, Val, then this is quite interesting for you because hydroponics, it seems quite natural. It seems quite like it's mimicking the growth cycle of plants and herbs. What does smart technology mean for you then, seeing as you're creating a product that's inherently to do with this technology in order for it to build properly and grow?
Yeah, and someone said this earlier, where I think a lot about what a smart product really is not just internet connected or not just having, you know, Bluetooth connection or an app. It's a lot about that customer experience. So for us, it was a lot about that smart design of from getting that package to unboxing to planting and harvesting. What would that journey look like? And how could we make it better than the existing alternatives today? And if you're buying a potted plant or, you know, basil plant from the grocery store, most likely, you know, you get the plant, it doesn't come with any growing instructions. You have to figure out how much water to add, how frequently to add it, where to put it in your home for enough sunlight. And it causes a lot of people to fail at growing, or even if you need to leave for a couple days, then it's gone by the time you get back home. So what we've really done is reinvent what the gardening experience could look like. And we really believe that as more people are staying at home, they want pods or living seedlings to be shipped to their home instead of having to go outside and buy groceries all the time. And that's a part of the experience. But from a technological standpoint, we actually integrated some technologies that I think when you are a tech critic, you're thinking, why does a garden need Wi-Fi? But I think it adds a lot of availability for new technology to be added in that gives the customer a better experience. So what I mean by that is if you have a camera in there, we can actually see what plants are growing, how they're growing, the health of the plant, when to expect a harvest. So we actually can diagnose anything from our customer support team right from the comfort of home. Whereas a product that may be, a basil pot or, something that's not connected with a camera or any sensors, then they have no more feedback to help the customers. And I think that aspect of really good customer service and support can be better enabled when you have these sensors, when you have certain technology built into your hardware that enables everything else. So for us, it's, the hardware was just a means to enable a better customer experience. And the rest of it really is software planning for that whole branding experience. And that's the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned at home a lot. So I actually want to bring it now into this current climate that we're in, the pandemic. So obviously during the pandemic, we've all become perhaps our own chefs, our own hairdressers. People are embracing gym alternatives, doing that at home. And it seems they're embracing a sort of do-it-yourself mindset, myself included. Are products which allow you to be your own gardener or your own barista using technology, are these products specifically speaking to this idea of self-sufficiency? Is that the intention? Patrick, what do you think?
So I think, when you are following on with what you said, technology now gives you a bit of, as I said, the chance to do something maybe for your first time on your own. There's a lot of things we looked at or when we researched our product. Waste is certainly not a thing you actually want to even think about. It's just the outcome. But now when you're staying at home all the time, you actually accumulate everything at one spot, and it becomes visible to you, and that makes you think, why is that, and how can I change it? Or even when we also heard a lot about, I would love to grow some plants and things, but I don't really know how, and how do I nourish them the best? So I can really relate a lot of what Eva said. And I think technology, should really help them to guide it through the way. No one has to be an expert in everything, but they still want to be, doing things. They want to grow their things, and they don't have to, don't necessarily need to read anything, like all the descriptions anymore. So technology just guide them and help them. And as I said earlier, we're lazy, generally lazy people. So if something is there that helps us along the way of being at home and going through that difficult time for all of us, and gives a bit of spark of joy, that's, I think, a great thing to do. And certainly I think all of our products try to do that. Yeah, bring a bit of spark of joy at home, and at a great time to allow you to do more things at home while you can't go out, while you can grow your things, you can recycle yourself, you can have your own individualized water. So it gives you more things to do while being at home, and I think that's a great value that you can add.
Yeah. Well, Moritz, that's quite interesting that Patrick said things that help you, products that help you. Then why produce water at home, in terms of self-sufficiency, when, for example, we have our own taps?
Right. Yeah, that's a tricky question. But I think, well, you asked about, is there a tendency, I think, if I understood rightly, is there a tendency towards self-sufficiency maybe induced or stimulated by the crisis that we're facing globally? And I would think so. I think, there's a reason why there was, people bought 500 rolls of toilet paper and things that, because that was kind of a very highly emotional, it is a highly emotional time, and it does drive people to, well, self-sufficiency, or it does drive people to wanting to create. And I think that's related yeah, both kind of almost the two things. I think we see the vulnerability of supply chain. So we see, that a globally completely integrated world might not make sense for every thing, and especially for food. I think that's something that we're seeing, and that people are kind of, it's a wake-up call. Should we really have that apple from New Zealand? Or maybe just, maybe not. And I think another thing that people are waking up to is, or seeing, and it's not directly related to food, but there is, I think, always a very strong emotional connection, is food and global disease. So I think people are just a bit more afraid of, consuming, things that they don't really know. And I think that there's a strongly emotional side to that. And I think we are seeing an increase in, I'm sure, all of our products, or demand for all of our products, because they all cater to this idea of, I can make it myself. I can make it physically, but then also I think there's an emotional element of taking control of my own destiny. That's a very strong word, but my own production. And I think maybe it caters to the cavemen and our women as well in us, of creating our own things. And I think that's definitely, definitely, I think a very strong tendency. And I'm sure it's not just happening in the bubbles that we live in. I think I'm sure it's a global phenomena. We see an uptake in anything that has to do with do it yourself. And I think, that's why it happens. And I think you asked specifically, and I'm not going to evade your question about why should you do that with your water. It's really because let's just take Germany. I mean, Germany has a market of, it's just Germany, $15 billion euros of bottled water, of which, so that's 15 billion in market size per annum, of which 3/4 are, I think 82% are actually in plastic. So that's a lot of plastic that is being shipped. Every German uses 170 bottles per capita per annum in bottled water, and that's something that we want to change. So yeah, people they want mineral water, they want carbonated water, especially in Germany, and that's something that we can do and that UTAP can do.
Just to add on one thing, I mean, you said a pandemic obviously makes it even more relevant now, but I think it was a general trend already ongoing. I think it was probably just elevated or speed up by having such extreme time at the moment. But it was generally people want to stay in control of what's going on and don't lose touch to what they're actually doing more and more, and having more conscious decisions. And I think that's would have been the place anyways. I'm not so sure if it's so fast, but I think would have been.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's a lot of people that think that just because it's a idiosyncratic event that it takes on like a very myopic sense, or there's like a temporal element to the conversations, like, oh, okay, but like when it goes back to normal, everything is gone. I agree. I think there's a catalyst, and I think that there's also a lot to be said about the fact that, like, for sure there is absolutely a place for that, out of home experience, if we want to use that as the bifurcation here. But, as you said, like, I think there was a lot of stuff coming home already in terms of experiences. One area I look at a lot is kind of like the media side. And that's super interesting to me, because if you see just in that alone, the level of curation of media, whether it be streaming, podcast, now this Clubhouse app that everybody was talking about, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, there's this concept of going narrow and deep, and people are wanting to actually go deeper, whatever it is that they're hobbyists about or passionate about. I think it's quite, it's really encouraging, actually, because I quite like to know that everyone at least has a breadth of things that they want to have experiences on, but if they want to go narrow and deep, that they have those options. And so I think you're right that it was a catalyst, and I don't think we see that really going away completely, but for every product category, it will shift for sure a bit after we see things kind of, at least for lack of a better way of phrasing it, normalize a bit. And so I think that's quite interesting. I also just wonder, given the number of investments that were made in the home, how that will change kind of social circles going forward as well. Like, I know that for us specifically, cafe culture was a big part of like social norms. And that's something that we actually like to advocate for. So that's why we work with many roasters here in the US, kind of on the more boutique level. But it will be interesting with buying, as you said, fitness equipment, buying products like ours. How is that going to have implications for, whether or not people might actually defer more to inviting people into the home with smaller gatherings as opposed to going out? That's obviously something that we're always talking about internally to see, keeping, as I say, like kind of your finger on the pulse of how that's evolving.
Yeah,
I think that's super interesting how, I think there's a certain stickiness to purchases, right? Like once you get, Peloton, I guess, you just most likely are going to use it, and that will just change your time. You won't, maybe not everyone will go back to the gym, right?
I hope they're not going to throw out their TK1. Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah. So
exactly.
I think that's really quite interesting how once, maybe these accelerated, that accelerated, and then what are the stickiness and all the ramifications, the butterfly effect of all these accumulated, basically accumulated decisions that you made during this time. And it's not just a month, it's now almost approaching a year. And I think that's going to be super, super exciting to see, and quite unpredictable, I think in detail, but I think as a general line, I think we're not going back to a pre-COVID world. We are going to a COVID influenced world, I think, beyond, after this.
Yeah, well then that leads on to, a couple more questions just before we jump to Q&A, but that leads on to what I wanted to ask, which was, you all sort of mentioned the products that we buy, and then it might change the social circles a little bit, but also this idea of a more conscious consumer. I'm not trying to say that there wasn't a conscious consumer before, but the pandemic perhaps has accelerated the idea of this conscious consumer. So out of the ashes of the pandemic, maybe rises the consumer who's more aware and cares more about shopping locally or transparency in all aspects of the supply chain. Patrick, do you think that this is what products should now be catering towards or being very aware of?
So as I said earlier, I think, yes, to be honest, to make a conscious decision is super difficult. I'm not even sure. Our products help, so to say, because you're in control of some part of it. But I'm not sure if you will always do everything. But I think there will be more. There has to come more and more technology which helps you, or more transparency. Where's that apple, the banana really coming in? Is it actually better to have a banana coming by ship or by plane? Is it packed or not packed? I personally try to, live at least minimal waste lifestyle, and I always think, okay, should I buy a canned food, or should it be in glass? And what is actually better, or not at all? So I think there needs to be a lot more technology besides our hardware, because we all actually hardware companies here, that gives you, supports you, but they also have to be smart, because we all talking about system here, and it helps you to make these conscious decisions, and don't make it too hard for you, because you have a lot of hard decisions to make anyways along the day. So be supported here, and that has to be the way anyways, right? With COVID or without. But coming back, so yes, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have to go to the Q&A now. We've got around 20 questions so far. I'm just going to go with the ones that were upvoted, so the ones at the top, and then feel free to jump in if it's not addressed to anyone in particular. So the first question we have is from Matthew. Do you believe you have any specific go-to-market obligations, for example, funding, packaging, sales channels, due to the ecological sector you promote? Moritz, do you want to start?
Let me just, it's in the Q&A, right? Do you believe the obligations? Well, I think obligations. We have, there's a couple of obligations. We have an obligation we have formulated for ourselves a manifesto, which a small advert you can read on our website. But that advert, that manifesto basically says that we want to do things in a certain way for the planet, for our people, for products, and we have a certain purpose. So that's the North Star that actually was mentioned earlier. So that's our North Star of how we want to do things. That's kind of a moral obligation that we have. We have an obligation to obviously, basically we have a legal framework that we have to operate in, and our investors as well that have, basically, venture capital funded, but that are in line with our manifesto. And now this is the kind of the meta level. And then now if you mention things like funding, packaging, sales channels, and things like that, I think there's an expression of our obligation in everything we do. So for example, let's take packaging. We are, developing our packaging in a sustainable way. And we're also thinking about what can you potentially do with that packaging post it being shipped to you, for example. Or we are funding, is, you mentioned that as well. It's one of the things that we look at, like, what's the mission of the people, or like, do they fit our purpose? And then obviously it's also those investors then basically kind of buying into our very openly communicated manifesto, and they can obviously choose to do that or not. And last point, and I think that's again quite meta, but I strongly believe in it. I think, if you are going to start a business that is going to be successful, by definition, it needs to be sustainable. If it really needs to be, if it will be changing, like a very big idea in a very big company, I do think it needs to be sustainable if it's going to be around for a long time, because we do live in a world of finite resources, and we do live in a completely disruptive world where, a schoolgirl from Sweden could make climate change cool. And I think we are going to see much more change than we even can, think about. Like, and you see it very clearly, for example, in the, alternative milk sector, for example. There's disruptive, there's incredible change at the moment. There's incredible change in the meat sector as well at the moment. So I think we will see the same in many, many sectors. And and I'll stop my long answer.
I want to add one thing here, Moritz. So you're right. It's not sort of, I wouldn't see it as an obligation. It's part of what we do. Yeah, we want to have a wholly integrated good product. But to be honest, it's a struggle. Yeah, you have to make decisions and compromises. And obviously, we, for hardware product, we need to build materials. And not everything is available already perfectly, sustainable, recircled. We definitely need to build in, metal to have a durable product. We're looking here to make it, a good decision to have the long-lasting and best metal material out there. But to be honest, we still, building something here which is made of things. But the way here is, your obligation basically is to make a well-educated decision and make a wise decision of what you use, and obviously have a wholly integrated, sustainable system to try to, compensate or do something good on the other side, right? So with our Kickstarter campaign, we said, okay, we want to support Box because they, some sort of way of giving back for to have an overall integrated system.
Do we have time for me to jump in as well? I know you said there are 20 questions, so.
It's okay, this one's a good one.
Yeah, I feel like if you read the subtext of this question, it's effectively asking like how to avoid the risk of greenwashing your business, which is just to say that you market something sustainable that in reality isn't, and that therein lies the obligation to actually be authentic. So I like that question a lot, and it's one of those ones that like, I find it very interesting, because sometimes it's like the startups with the limited resources and limited capabilities are the ones that try and take on the most of the burden. And then you kind of quickly, as an operator, you quickly come to this place of you cannot be everything for everyone right away, but in moments of solitude and being alone, not in marketing, not in presentations, not in a panel discussion, do you truly genuinely like build into your ethos and into the nucleus of your company a pathway to move in that direction? And that's the important thing, is that do you actually truly have that roadmap? Because nobody will really know all the decisions you've made about partners you've brought onto your platform, about the material science research you did to understand your product and how you could make it better, and the trade-offs you had to make at a certain point in time. but are you being authentic to yourself? And then also, of course, the employees that you bring into the company, that can we all understand that this is a mission-driven brand, that it's not just marketing speak, and we won't be able to do everything, which would be disappointing to some people you bring in, but to be able to explain it, to sleep at night, like, yeah, I know why we made that decision, but trust me, it's not just talk, that we want to make sure that in the next generation, in the next version, every iteration upon it, whether or not the market knows it or not, we're making those changes. And I think that's such a hard balance to have harmony and have comfort around, but it's certainly something that startups, I think I can speak for all of us to say that we certainly feel it. I mean, Moritz and Patrick, you're both speaking to all things we've always been talking about and are always testing and challenging ourselves. Are we really being honest with ourselves about this? Are we really doing as much as we can be doing? Yeah, it's a great question, but tough.
Thank you. Then I'll go straight to the next question, which is at the top. Very interesting one for all. So take your pick. You all have really cool products, but it seems that the target customers are rather privileged people. Or can your products actually help also others, maybe less affluent people too? I don't know if anyone wants to volunteer.
I mean, it's like the most perfect extension of what I just said. You cannot be everything for everyone right away, but you need to have a road. Like, it's exactly the same thing I would say is like where you start your brand, where you build your brand equity, where you establish your brand pillars. I know this, like I said, brand like 50,000 times just now, but like really, honestly, if you think about it, like where we're starting is not where we're planning to end. And do you have a roadmap that you're able to serve as many people as possible and stay true to the mission that you established from the beginning? I think it's a very fair question. And it's, again, something that we think about a lot. I would say that it's always rather interesting because if you actually look about how much on average Americans spend per coffee or per year per annum in coffee is quite crazy. So it kind of connects back to the DIY-ness of actually how this can be a more economical choice, especially if you offer rate payment options, if you offer ability to pay in kind of creative ways. But I think one thing we've always been very careful about internally is to never ever say we might have the best value for money, but this is not a cheap product. It's unequivocally not a cheap product, but how can we serve more people over time? And that's something we try to build into our strategy very, very thoughtfully. Yeah, test the roadmap, exactly. Good now, I remembered that much.
Sure. Thanks. So with completely can relate, just want to add one small thing. I mean, being a startup, you have to start somewhere, and that's usually the way of, I mean, it's still a business, right? If you can't survive, and we all did technology investments, someone needs to pay for that at the beginning. But I think all of us all have a roadmap. How can we reach as many possible people as possible in the long run? I mean, we have so many plans here. How can we go make it cheaper? How can we make it better or more accessible to other markets? But it's just a decision we decided is the best to get started, to get going. And people who are, have money, are privileged, they're willing to buy it for it, and then we have more chances as a business to come up with other products.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in, or
I maybe briefly, because I think water is quite an obvious one, right? I think access to water is quite an obvious one. I don't want to take too much space here, but I think maybe two small thoughts on this. Before starting Mitte, I was living in Ethiopia for 2 years, working in the NGO world, and it was kind of coming back and then actually discovering the technology that we're looking at. That was the very first thing I thought about. Can this be a solution to people that actually don't have access? In my context at that time, I was working with the Gates Foundation in the East Africa. For East Africa, people that many millions that don't have access to water, and then I realized that I wouldn't be sitting here if I would be proposing that right away. And so I think that's more the anecdote here, and then now the kind of to the more rational. I think it's quite easy to criticize doing something if you're not inside of it. What is, and I completely second what Sahand said, I think it's so important to go onto a journey. It's almost like a Stoic or like a Buddhist argument of it's about starting a journey, and you also have to know where you're going. And I think you have to have a North Star and a goal. And it's about what I call, for example, in circularity, the seeds of circularity. So it's about planting those seeds, any decision point that you can, you know, and you will have all these trade-offs. And, you know, are you using the bioplastic, biodegradable plastic? Yes, no, and so forth. There's so many questions, but it's about also asking yourself the question, and you know, maybe 1 out of 10 times you will answer yes, I'll do it, and then the next time you'll do it again. And I think so. It's about starting, and it's about North Star. And for us, maybe specifically, we have actually an initiative that we started, which is called Mitte X, which is basically the idea of, can we take our resources, our capabilities, our know-how, and actually bring it and apply it in sectors where, you know, in the regions where there is no access to water, or there's complicated, you know, with situations. And yeah, that's actually an initiative we're doing on the side to see how it can benefit more people in line with that, you know, mission that we have, which is healthy hydration for everybody, so every person. So that's in line with that. Yeah, and then sorry if poor Valerie, I was cutting her off because she was quiet for a while now.
Yeah, Val, if you want to jump in, or we can also go to another question.
Or next one.
Yeah, we can go to the next one as well.
Yeah, I mean, the next one, there's 2 that are equally voted. One's for Moritz, but I might move to the other one first, which is for everyone. How did you consider sustainability when prototyping and selecting materials during the manufacturing processes for your hardware? You know, plastics are everywhere in hardware development, injection molding, 3D printing. Val, I don't know if this is relevant for the process that came to AVA, but.
Sure. I'll kind of talk about it at a higher level, because I think inherently, you know, I'll be completely honest with you, there are not a lot of really great sustainable alternatives, at least accessible to us here in Vancouver, Canada, that are very sustainable when it comes to 3D printing. A lot of these processes use resins and plastics. I think there are certain, you know, recycling. So after you have 3D printed something, you can recycle that material in an actual recycler. We don't really have access to purchase something like that would be, you know, be able to be used again in our system. So it is a challenge for us when it comes to prototyping itself. When it comes to production, I think because we are actually a made in Canada product, we're made an hour away from where our offices are. So it gives us a little bit more control as to, you know, what are the inputs going in, how far are things traveling. I think a lot of people make their products in China. How can we use and support more local businesses? For another example, are there other things that are not just sustainability that we can consider? So for our pod packs, we employ adults with developmental disabilities, so people who might not otherwise get employed, and something as simple as seating, packaging, stickering, that's something that's very straightforward for someone with a developmental disability to work on. So we're thinking of other ways, not just from the sustainability aspect from the beginning, but all things in the supply chain that could make it more efficient, that could make it more sustainable or socially conscious. So I think that the entire process is really important. And for our plastics itself, because inherently our product has plastics and metals, we're kind of thinking of the trade-off between, hey, yes, you have this thing, it has inputs in it, but you use it once and you don't need packaging ever again, versus if you're buying bottled water, for example, or plants from the grocery store in a plastic clamshell, you're always going to be feeding into that existing system of buying things wrapped in plastic. So I think there's an element of how have you redesigned the experience for the customer in general? How can that be offset over the process? How are you as a business offsetting from your own supply chain and inputs? And for us as well, we don't actually ship plastics with our pod packs. So the recurring consumable, that's just completely, the whole entire thing is compostable. So we really think about just end of life, you know, the packaging we have there, it's not shrink wrapped in plastic. We don't ever want it to be shipped in plastic. Our bite packaging for the device is also completely zero waste, and we don't want to use any plastics there either. So I think there are ways that we're trying to offset, but it is something we want to get better at. There's some really good organizations that do plastic and supply chain offsetting for your product or business. So that is something that we're looking into. We currently also do tree planting with our pod packs, and the idea is for every pod pack, we have a theme where we partner with an NGO to give back to the earth. So if you buy our winter greens, you plant a tree. If you're buying our indigenous cultural pod pack, you can support the local indigenous cultural societies. So just really trying to be conscious in more ways than just like the singular product itself.
Mm-hmm. And a wider net. I think we have time for maybe just one more question, seeing as we're a few minutes before the end. This is for Moritz specifically, from Heinz. How big do you see the challenge to industrialize products, given that the water market is dominated by really big international players?
Yeah, I think
be a little bit quicker, just as we're going towards.
Yeah, okay. I think that's, I mean, I could talk quite a lot about that, but I think there is a big opportunity in that as well, because you do have very clear enemies. So you have enemies, right? Or friends, or people, as I call them, entrenched, unfortunately entrenched in very, you know, business models that will be obsolete in not, you know, too long future. And basically, you know, the big, I mean, the big four, there's Coca-Cola, Pepsi. We have a couple of people in the call actually also from these players. We have Danone and Nestle, those four big players. And I mean, if you, you know, they're not inherently bad people, far from it. I think they just happen to sell a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense and won't be there in 30, 40 years, but they're also acting on it, right? I mean, you saw the Pepsi acquisition, for example, of SodaStream, and you know, they're really pumping that up now and trying to make it more successful. So I think for us that actually is maybe an opportunity, because we can really clearly position ourselves and basically, yeah, provide a solution that's not there yet, and make a dent in this massive market. And yeah, I think if anything, it actually, I think is a chance for us.
Thank you. I think that's all the time that we have now for the Q&A. I feel bad for the 20 other questions that we have, but other than that, I think that's still a very good note to end on. So I just want to say thanks again to our panelists, also the attendees. It's been over 120 joining, so really great that you're all here. So thank you all for joining, and please keep an eye out for part 2 of this series coming up. But otherwise, thanks everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks Patrick, Sahand, Val, Moritz, obviously. It was really enjoyable. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.